The Senator from Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. President. On November 3rd this year, Special Counsel Durham indicted Christopher Steele's primary subsource, Igor Danchenko. He indicted him on 5 counts of lying to the FBI. He lied about his contacts and the identity of his sources. One of the more serious lies was about Sergei Milyan. The indictment shows that Danchenko alleged a phone call occurred between him and Milyan about a Trump-Russia conspiracy. That call was part of the basis that the FBI used to get a FISA warrant on Carter Page. Now, according to Durham, Steele's source lied about the call because that call never happened. This is yet another stunning, fatal defect against the Obama-Biden administration's fake predicate to investigate Trump. Specifically, yet another illustration of Justice Department and FBI's failure. Now, as a result of these failures, this country has been dragged through the mud for years. That statement is well understood at this point, but I have more to explain about it. The indictment also shows that one of Steele's sources was, quote, a longtime participant in Democratic politics, end of quote, and that he, quote unquote, fabricated at least some of the information that he gave to Danchenko. This source, identified as Charles Dolan, quote, actively campaigned and participated in calls and events as a volunteer on behalf of Hillary Clinton's, end of quote, during the 2016 election. Another one of Danchenko's sources was also a Hillary Clinton supporter. Charles Dolan gifted to this particular Russian subsource an autobiography of Hillary Clinton signed with these words, quote unquote, to my good friend, a great Democrat. Now, get this. While the Democrats were smearing Trump with false Russia allegations, they were the ones rubbing elbows with Russians and spreading false information in the media. And, of course, the media, as we know, gladly ran with that information. For example, President Biden's current National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, promoted the false story about the Russian bank called Alpha Bank, communicating with the Trump organization when he worked for the Clinton campaign. Notably, during congressional testimony several years ago, Sullivan said that he wasn't sure who Mark Elias represented when he presented Trump opposition research to the campaign. Now, for crying out loud, Elias was the Clinton campaign's general counsel. My oversight work, dating back to December 2016, has focused on the Democratic parties and Clinton's campaigns linked to the Steele dossier. Last Congress, Senator Johnson and I obtained many records relating to Crossfire Hurricane. We were able to get many of them declassified for the public. I point you to our April 15th, 2020 December 3rd, 2020, and December 18th, 2020, for press releases on this information. Some of the declassified records show that the FBI had reports in its hand that showed the Steele dossier was most likely tainted with Russian disinformation. One document indicates that the FBI received a U.S. intelligence report on January the 12th, 2017, warning of inaccuracy in the dossier's relation to Michael Cohen. The report assessed that the material was, quote, part of a Russian disinformation campaign to denigrate U.S. foreign relations, end of quote. That same day, the FISA warrant against Page was renewed for the first time by Acting Attorney General Sally Yates. This is when the Obama-Biden administration and the Justice Department were still in charge. A similar U.S. intelligence report arrived on February the 27th, 2017, undercutting a key allegation against then-President Trump. The report noted claims about Trump's travel to Moscow in 2013, quote, were false, and they were the product of Russian intelligence services infiltrating a source into the network, end of quote, of sources that contributed to the dossier. Just over a month later, the FISA warrant against Page was then renewed for a second time. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the FBI also opened a counterintelligence case on Danchenko and failed to tell the FISA court about it. If this fact pattern was a movie script, nobody would believe it. With Durham's recent indictments, we now have even more proof that the Trump-Russia collusion investigation had the wrong name. It should have been the Clinton DNC Russia collusion investigation. The media and many members of the Democratic Party ought to be ashamed of the falsehoods that they were spreading throughout these years. Our political discourse has been damaged for decades to come because of that scheme. Recently, the Washington Post had to correct over a dozen articles relating to its previous Russia reporting in light of the extensive errors made by that newspaper. Years of errors, I might add. I think it's somewhat unprecedented. And I'm sure the Washington Post hated to retract and correct the record. As Durham proceeds, I say this, don't take your eyes off of government misconduct. The Justice Department and the FBI had critical information from the FISA court that would have cut against their case. They failed to correct the record when they should have corrected the record. Simply put, the Justice Department and the FBI misrepresented information to the court. That conduct can't be allowed to pass.